Let's talk about the state of the union in terms of the union itself and not economic policy or whatever. Because we have this story from the Post-Millennial. Man, woman charged in plot to attack Maryland power grid. Okay, that's kind of freaky because, you know, we work out of Maryland. We'll be leaving soon with the new studio being constructed and everything. But, yeah, when I saw a story like this is like, what, the 30-somethingth power grid or substations that were either planned to be attacked or were attacked. We saw it happen. I mean, all over the U.S., people have been, for some reason, attacking the power grid. I don't know why or whatever. They're saying, I guess, the reason for this is that they were racists. I'm not kidding. They said they were racists, and that's why they wanted to do it, for some kind of like racist ideology or white supremacy or something. But I'm just thinking, like,
they're accelerationists. They want
maybe
a civil war to break out. I said it. Tim didn't.
Yeah, you can't drink. I didn't say it. No, but I'm like, the state of the union is West Coast states are banning gas cars. Was it Wyoming or Montana banning electric cars? Was it Montana?
I think it was Montana.
Yeah, it was Montana.
Montana?
Yeah, I can pull it, but
you've got Oklahoma now. They did that bill where they're banning child sex changes, and protesters showed up demanding the right to give children sex changes. You have some states that are banning abortion outright, while others are creating laws to grant abortion to the point of birth. The bifurcation, like the State of the Union, is hyperpolarization, chaos, and conflict. Joe Biden's going to come out tonight and be like, everything's great. There's nothing to worry about. And it's like the Titanic hit the iceberg. And then everyone's like, what was that shake? It's like, nothing's happening. Everything's good. We are on course. Meanwhile, his son's negotiating foreign business deals to send Louisiana natural gas to China, make them some money. Because I'm telling you that the Titanic hit the iceberg, and the Bidens and the Democratic establishment and many Republicans as well have started loading up at everything they can on the lifeboats, and they're getting ready to jump ship.
Wyoming proposed banning electric cars. And the big argument was that the infrastructure can't handle it. It costs them more to make electric cars work in their very rural state. I mean, it's an evidence of how different. It's like there are two countries here. There's one, like
multicultural
California,
democracy.
And there's another one that's much more tied to a constitutional republic. Can we just coexist? Can we live in parallel worlds? No.
Yo, I'm sorry, man. I do not see how, and people tell me I'm wrong, and maybe I am, but people will comment and be like, Tim's crazy for thinking civil war is coming, and it's like, okay, you're by all means, please, I'd love to be wrong, because I just don't understand how there can be one country where one state allows child sex change operations when the child has been taken from another state. As a sanctuary, that's the point. Texas is moving to ban this. California is calling it a sanctuary. I don't understand how a country can exist where it's legal to murder someone in Oregon, but illegal basically everywhere else. And that's the story, I don't know if you guys saw, about the death tourism. You've got a doctor saying, he's telling people to come to his practice and he will give you death pills. It's like, yeah, that's murder, you know? And we're looking at medical assistance in dying in Canada. Canada actually has a moratorium right now on mentally ill medical assistance in death that ends in about 1 month. Meaning it actually says on the government website, you do not need to be terminal in order to get medical assistance in dying in Canada. You can be just mentally ill, and they will, if you ask, kill you. There's a guy in Oregon who is saying, and he's brought people from other states and killed them. And I'm just like, look, man, if it's one thing to have republicanism where it's like the laws are different in different states, but not when it's like one state would allow you to take a child from a different state and then castrate them. Like, as sooner or later, I guess I'll put it this way. The Jeff Younger story was that his kids were taken from Texas to California, where California is a gender affirmation sanctuary. They will not comply with law enforcement to return the child who's been taken if they're going to get sterilized and castrated. So what happens? Someone takes a kid from Texas against their parents' wishes, tied up in the courts. The feds won't do anything about it. What happens? Well, I'll tell you this. Are Texas Rangers going to go to California to get that kid back? No. Are the feds going to do it? Not under Biden. Under a Donald Trump presidency, maybe the feds going to get that kid back. And then you have to think about the inverse. What if a family is from California and the state is going to, this kid's going to get castrated or whatever, and so the parent flees to Texas where it's illegal? Is California going to send state police to Texas to get that kid back? I don't think so. Under Biden, they might. So that just says to me that we're looking at the country has split so far in two they are at odds to a point where there's no reconciliation. And depending on who the president is, you will get action in either direction.
Well, if we were economically stable, I think it would be we would be able to coexist even with things like this weird, like killing people and changing children's gender. But in economic instability, that's when people are more willing to take the law into their own hands. If they're suffering, if they're starving, if their families have threat of death, then, I mean, what choice do you have? Your government's failed you at that point. Which, again, pisses me off that Biden hasn't talked about the Federal Reserve since he's been in office and why we're going bankrupt as a country. I know. I need him. The state. So you were talking earlier about the domestic State of the Union. This is all like domestic stuff. Now, internationally, the State of the Union is the liberal economic order is turning into the New World Order. At least this is my ideal thing. Like what's happening is a New World Order is being created. Whether or not it's BRICS, which is the Chinese, Russian, India, Brazil, and South African coalition, or if it's the liberal world order, which is like England, France, Germany, United States. Or both of them together, if it's Klaus Schwab's corporate global dominance that he wants to do, where corporations control the world, or I don't know. But I think that is our State of the Union forward-facing globally, is that the liberal economic order has the opportunity to establish a new world order based on statehood instead of central control.
I generally like when states have autonomy over their own laws, right? It is challenging to see how you navigate inconsistencies, but I don't like the idea of ceding power to a federal government, and I'd rather have the states. It becomes extremely complicated. I always have felt strongly, especially about like children's rights issues. A lot of law basically treats children like they're the property of their parents, which in many respects, of course, they are. They're under their guardianship. But in these cases, especially where you have parents who don't agree on such fundamental levels as to, should we let our child transition genders or not, it becomes very difficult to see. And the idea that the most common form of kidnapping, from what I understand in the data that I last looked at, is parental abduction. When a parent who's going through a divorce takes their kid, would, by having such a splintered culture and identity or understanding of morality, make that even worse going forward.
But let's talk about republicanism, and let's talk about the limits. The idea being that each state enforces its own laws. Let's say you share a house with 3 other roommates, and you each have a bedroom. And one of your roommates opens his window and starts letting strangers come into the house. They go in the kitchen, start eating your food. They're in their living room watching TV. And you're like, who are you people? How did you get in here? And they're like, we live here now. And then you're like, no. You're not allowed to come in here. Oh, no, he let us in. That's what California's doing. Mm-hmm. California, quite literally, is a sanctuary state. And they're allowing people to illegally enter to a certain degree, offering them resources. And then these people use California as their entry point and then go through other ways. Now, don't get me wrong, they're still illegally crossing in Arizona and Texas, and the federal government's doing nothing about it. But California is abusing these ideas. They're using it to fluff their population numbers, their census numbers. So they actually had, I think, in the 2010s, they had an extra congressional seat and an extra electoral college vote because they allowed non-citizens into the country. So, yeah, no, we can't. The federal government needs to have laws that everyone says, okay, these are the basic rules. Non-citizens can't be coming in because then they go around everywhere. Otherwise, we do what? We put up border checkpoints on the highways between states. We can't do that either.
Deport people from different states.
Yeah. Well, what's frustrating for me is that conservatives are so reluctant to use federal power, right? Even when they have it. And it's honestly un-American. Like Washington, short after becoming president, he, quelled a rebellion with force. Like that is a very American thing to do. But for some reason, us as conservatives, we've become so enamored with states' rights and so scared of, using government to reach our ends that we're just getting mowed over by the Dems who are doing that exact thing, right? So we have to step up. And when we have power, we have to be able to use it and be willing to use it, or else we're going to lose our country. We're going to be serfs in a country that's run by, power-hungry, woke minorities. It's going to be insane. It's all going to be, affirmative action hiring and all of that nut stuff.
What would be an example of using the law in your favor?
So I think DeSantis is a great example of doing this at the state level. And I hope that if, his presidential ambitions, if he does become the candidate, that he'll be able to do that at the federal level. But the way he pulled the liquor license, right, when that family style restaurant was having a drag show for kids with minors present. So doing things like that, I think, a lot of conservatives will look at that and they'll be like, oh my goodness, he's using big government. Like, we don't do that. What if they, we set a standard that they're going to later use against us? We can't think like that, because I really do think, to your point about civil war, time is of the essence. We're losing our country. So we have to take a final stand and be willing to get our hands dirty.
Thanks for watching this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. Hang out with us live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. and become a member over at timcast.com for uncensored, members-only shows exclusive. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.